To address Mr. Blue's lower back and knee issues, I ask him to perform a few simple tasks, at least once a day between training sessions, although if he does it more than once a day, even better. There aren't any structural issues from an injury or impact or a fall in the past, so we aim to get the areas as supple as possible and then strengthen to provide greater support. Firstly, addressing the tight glutes, directing tension and discomfort into the lower back. I ask him to take a seat on a tennis ball, a massage ball, or, as I use here, a soft ball. It's hard, solid, like a cricket ball, but just a slightly bigger diameter. I ask him to roll around on the glute, intentionally looking for knots and sore spots. To quantify, I ask him to form 10 clockwise circles around the glute and 10 anti-clockwise before moving on to the other side. This will help loosen the tight muscle, boost circulation, and so, more importantly, allow better function around the hip and so pulling less on the lower back. The key is to lean as much body weight into the ball as is comfortable with. Too much and you'll start to bruise and clench the muscle, fight against it. Too little and it might not do very much at all. But get the intensity right, and when you stand up from this simple activity, Mr. Blue feels a lot more freedom of movement through his hips and a much stronger squat. I ask him to take about 2 to 3 minutes at any one time massaging the glutes. A bit more and risk of starting to bruise, so just a little bit at a time. Little but often definitely is the best course. Next, I ask Mr. Blue to take as deep a squat as his heels will stay on the ground for, and to pull his lower body between his knees as far as he can. Then, holding onto the ankles or fingers on the floor, trying to lift the hips to straighten the knees as far as possible, preferably to reach maximum stretch before he reaches knees straight. Slowly lower the hips back into a squat, turning the feet out, and then hold onto the ankles as he lifts the hips to a hamstring stretch. Moving between a really deep squat and a hamstring stretch would be a great way to loosen up the hips, lengthen the hamstrings, and gain a little bit more mobility and range of movement. Taking his time, I ask him to do about 20 repetitions of this movement. Every time he might reach the hips a little bit higher, a little bit less bend in the knee as he reaches maximum stretch for the hamstrings. When he gets here, I ask him to go a little further to grab the back of the ankles. Try to pull the chest towards the knees. Point the toes out wide, deep squat, push the elbows into the inside of your knees. Push the knees wide as possible. Feel the stretch in the inside of hip as well. Number 3, as Mr. Blue does spend some time at a desk working, I ask him to perform a few doorway stretches. Hands about shoulder height and step through a doorway, leaving the arms behind. The task is to push the chest through the doorway, not necessarily the chin. You want to keep the chin back, ears directly above the shoulders. Lean chest forwards through the doorway, not necessarily the chin. To feel more stretch, just before you step through, with hands shoulder height, also try to rotate at the shoulders to lift elbows to shoulder height. That'll get a little bit more stretch if the doorway is particularly wide. After stepping back and forth about 20 times, I ask him to take one hand high and one hand low. Pulling the shoulders back, aim to squeeze shoulder blades together. Body goes forwards, not the chin. Moving slowly, you don't have to reach as far as possible. The trick is not to go as far as you can to try correct something in one workout, but instead to take it gradually, little but often, small incremental improvements. And lastly, strengthening around the knees, going backwards up some steps, taking it slow, moving gradually. The foot on the next step along does most of the work. You want the front of thigh, especially the tear-shaped part of the thigh muscle close to the knee, to do most of the work. Up and down a few flights of stairs or count approximately 20 or 30 steps. Slow movements going up to encourage strengthening, not getting through it as quickly as possible, not trying to raise your heart rate. After doing those 20 or 30 steps, grabbing a foot around where the laces would be with the opposite hand, keeping it tight, very upright posture, and pushing the toes down, flexing the ankle against the hand to provide more stretch. Clenching the buttock will add more stretch to the front of thigh as well. The task would be to try and get the stretch closer to the knee every time you point the toes down towards the ground. After approximately 10 dips on each foot, going back to the stairs. slowly backwards up the stairs. The slower you move, the tougher it gets, the more stimulus for strengthening, making gradual, intentional movements. Trick is to lean into the muscle you're trying to work. Only going as far as is comfortable with. You want to perform with very little or no pain in the knees. On a pain scale of 1 to 10, 10 being excruciating, can't do any more, you want to stay around 2 or 3, not very much at all. Poke at it a little bit, but not aggravating the area. Too much, and you could get some inflammation, a bit of swelling. Again, after a few flights of steps, or 20 or 30 steps, grab the foot with the opposite hand around where the laces would be. 10 dips while clenching the buttock of the leg that you're stretching, aiming to get the stretch closer to the knee, aiming for about 10 times each leg. To get supple, you can perhaps pull on the leg a little bit further at the end of these 10 dips.